The railways first arrived in Epping, Essex in 1865 at the hands of the Great Eastern Railway. Initially, opened as a single-track extension on from Loughton, the line continued through to Ongar some 6 miles onwards from Epping. In 1964, London Underground required a shunting locomotive for their Action Works site. They decided to recycle one locomotive out of 2 available locomotives. This was something that they had done before. The redundant stock that they had used was formed of 2 standard stock vehicles. To form L11 itself, the cruiser Action Works removed the passenger areas off of the 2 vehicles and then formed the 2 separate motor cars together. The locomotive now consists of 2 traction motors on each of the 2 bogies. With them being connected in series meant that the locomotive was much better suited for low-speed shunting maneuvers. One interesting feature of L11 is that sanding gear and a respective heater was fitted to aid traction in poor weather. This was the last unit to be fitted with sanding gear due to it affecting the signalling systems now in use on the network. All of the building is original to what the Epping cabin was when in service. Inside the cabin currently is the signalling frame, which is not the original from Epping. The frame is from Hainault, which is a few miles away. The main reason as to why the frame from Hainault was needed was because the original N2M frame was stripped out of the cabin at Epping, even though it was requested for preservation in the late 90s when changes to operations in the area deemed it obsolete. The frame was moved in 4 sections and hoisted onto the 2nd floor from ground level. This is because the frame operating area is situated on the 2nd floor of the building to mainly help with visibility. This has been like this since opening. The current frame is now in the opposite configuration to what it was when situated in Hainault Depot, with the telephone now situated on the right hand side. The block bells are currently out of service but are in a list of projects being worked on. These were used to communicate with the next signal cabins at Devon towards London and North Weald in the opposite direction. These, through a list of bell codes, would notify when next train would be sent and received from the other cabins. In 1964, the locomotive entered service and was duly painted into a maroon colour scheme. This was a colour scheme that service vehicles were painted into. 25 years later, in 1989, L11 was transferred to Ruislip Depot on the Central Line, but was soon moved back to Action Works for storage in 1991. In 1993, it was transferred to the LU Heritage Fleet. It was soon destined for scrap if a home could not be found. The Cravens Heritage Trust were contacted by the London Transport Museum to see if they had a place to locate L11. The then owners of Land BCV reached an agreement to plinth L11 onto a section of rack to the sound end of Epping Station that was not deemed within operational area. The track was laid down conveniently as a training exercise by the Hainault Permanent Way Team, and the ballast was also laid. Overnight between the 14th and 15th of April 2004, engineering services were the chosen company to move L11 from Ruislip Depot to the site at Epping. Assistance was provided by the Emergency Response Unit due to the locomotive not moving for several years and the wheels and brakes were locked shut. Ever since that night when it was placed onto the plinth, it has been situated there and looked after by the volunteers at the Epping Signalling Museum. Signalling at Epping was controlled by a 23-lever Saxby and Farmer frame instead of box, which was constructed in 1887 and was located on what is now Platform 2. After World War II, there were plans to make Ongar a new town. However, due to more favourable rail connections at Harlow, the latter was chosen. The developing underground network was now having to share the tracks with the mainline services as far as Leighton, where they were diverged towards the terminal at Liverpool Street, and the underground would make its way under the surface towards the city and out west to the line's termini at Ealing Broadway and West Ruislip respectively. During the time that one platform was used for the shuttle service to Ongar and the other for the services to London, trains would have been stabled in the east siding to the north of the station before working the next service. Originally, the platforms at Epping were staggered, but over time, these were aligned level. In August 1962, the gasworks siding was disconnected from the network and lifted. This was due to the gasworks itself closing down. 5 years later, in 1967, the first stage of dismantling was taking place due to the goods traffic across the network closing down. In 1990, special services were operated to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the opening of the line to Ongar. The celebrations were well received despite that it was known that the line beyond Epping was going to be closing over the coming years.